Hi all, welcome to another Chess 24 Kingscrusher Banter Blitz. Okay, it's Sunday, 12:30. Let's go. I'm just might have to mute something over here. Go to my challenges. So first come, first serve on the challenges. And Marcel Kircher is the first guy today. Hi Marcel. Remember to tick the box to create a game. If you challenge me, I think there's a tick box. Well, there was a few weeks ago anyway. Okay. Try King's Engine defense setup. And yeah, this is pretty solid for white, not committing to e4. One slight downside is that I might play e5 threatening e4. If I arrange e4 pressure here, bishop b7 e5, I guess he could lock this in. So I'm threatening e4 now. So that's the threat. d5 is sufficient, but it locks in the bishop as well. We have a game there, knight c5, threatening e4 again. Okay, now this one, if he plays e4, the f4 and d4 squares are slightly loosened, so I don't mind that. I'll get out of any bishop g5 in advance. This bishop's still seeing the light of day. If I can play queen e7, oh, that's some light square weaknesses. Okay, I can put some more pressure here on d3. Maybe even knight e6, d4. Takes. Yeah, I think this is a cute little maneuver, knight d4. That's a kind of Achilles heel of white's position right now. Yeah, I think I can put a knight in there. Trying to open up these bishops on the crossfire of the bishops here. Let's see. The queen's hit as well. Knight takes, e takes, rook d1. I don't think I'm going to go for a queen sack with takes here, although it's interesting. I might just play c5. Okay, so we got this position. Maybe I think just c5. Although it is tempting. A rook and bishop for queen. It is tempting. I'm tempted. No, it's just on the side of. I don't know. Actually, it might have to look at that after, if that's because sometimes I think Kasparov in King's Engine positions has done that, but he knows what he's doing. There's a difference most of the time. Yeah, can't I just take the bishop? There's no check. He actually broke the pin on the pawn anyway. Probably take this knight off. It's quite a strong knight. Okay, so I can move on the dark squares, I think. So let's see, what do we have here? I think the bishops are still enjoying the position here. I can blockade on d6 this pawn and encourage f4, but then bishop d4 check. There's weaknesses left behind. Just rook e8 would then threaten queen takes d5 in that position, if you can imagine. Yeah, I think f5 anyway coming up. There's also knight g3 to think about, but bishop d4. I'll put a knight in there, that's nice. Queen f2, there's knight h3 check, full king, queen and king. There's bishop d4 is very attractive. But is there stronger? fg. I think actually this, because rook f7, I can protect a7 just in case, and then double as well, dual purpose, keeping a strong blockade on the dark squares. As also, if I doubled, there's knight h3 check. King g2, rook f2, king takes, queen h2. So I'm going to play knight h3 and rook f2. That should be pretty strong. Just knight h3 and rook f2 here. Okay, and pin that guy. So again, knight h3, rook f2. Oh, f1's actually covered. That'll be a blunder. Kind of. I'll take first and then rook f1. So that's rook f2, queen h2, I believe. Thanks for the game, Marcel. Okay, let's go on to the next challenge. Kostis. Hello, from Greece. Maybe Athens? I don't know. Let's play again, knight f6, and again a king's engine setup. It's a bit of fun. I should get some more books on the King's Engine. Haven't bought some for a while from Amazon or something. It's still a pretty popular system. Not on Super GM level that much, but okay. Rook b8, b5. Now, I know it looks as though b5 is impossible, but I could consider playing it as a distraction device, especially if he's not going to castle too quickly. I'm just using it as a kind of distraction device here. Let's put more pressure on e4. So knight c5 and bishop g4 is a distraction to h5. Pressure on e4. I know I've sacked a couple of pawns, but the thing is, it looks as though white hasn't developed too much. King still stuck in the center. This should be quite interesting for me. I can take this guy, and I'm on b2 now. And that's not that significant. b2, of course. Oh, there's knight g3 of more significance. Knight g3. Knight g3. Miktal on chat has played a terrible game against Locke Van Welly. Boring World Championship so far. Apart from game 3, I thought game 3 personally was the most exciting. And I actually, believe it or not, did some commentary with Larry Christiansen for that somewhere else, which was great fun to see a 3 times US champion, how relentless analysis, finding resources, absolutely relentlessly comparing infiltrations. It was really amazing. I was just checking his stuff, trying to check his stuff, and okay. But yeah, game 3 was my favourite for many reasons, but that's the main reason. One of the main reasons. Yeah, I was actually commenting it a bit live. Well, not a bit. It was more than 5 hours. I thought it was just going to be in 2 hours. It ended up to be more than 5 hours. So knight f5. But you know, in the last game we had a gambit. In game 6 we had a gambit. So things could have been even spicier with the proper Marshall gambit. Instead we have a relative of the Marshall gambit, which was like more positional in nature. But yeah, okay, it doesn't probably please too many fans right now. The World Championship for the excitement levels, but I think there were 1 or 2. Well, game 3 for me. Game 3 was pretty exciting, I thought, even though it was a draw. I think pundits expect a decisive game, but actually overall the track record on classical games, it's only like 4-1 with 19 draws before the match. So it's like they don't usually beat the hell out of each other. Let's go into this e4 square. It's more decisive, of course, on rapid or blitz, their encounters. But on classical, I think it was like 4-1 before the match. So Carlson 1-2-4. They play boring variations, especially Carlson. Yeah. I must admit, but that's I think it's kind of variations I kind of avoid, and same with some other attacking players. Kind of avoid the symmetrical stuff, but in World Championship, you want to play like the symmetrical stuff. I think, mind you, you go back to the 1951 World Championship match between Botvinnik and Bronstein, and loads of Dutch defences. But the times were different back then. That was like internal within the Soviet Union, that sort of World Championship match. And very, very different culture and stuff going on. And I think Bronstein, was under difficult circumstances as well, with his father and stuff. So I don't think he was even, potentially, there's controversies around it. He might not have been entirely motivated to win the match, but he wanted to prove a point by drawing the match. So back in 1951, things were different. There were some exciting openings. If you go back to 1951 as an example match, but of course 1972, Fischer-Spassky, that's exciting openings. Okay, thanks, Kostis. Yeah, the openings do kind of set the tone for a game because of the pawn structure and the trump cards of an opening. Okay, Shadow Mate. Let's play like I'm just going to play to clamp down on d4 for the moment. No, I think 1972 had a rich diversity of openings. Yeah, Fischer unleashed quite a few surprise openings like the Anakine's Defense with black, and playing into like the English opening, which people thought would just stick to e4. I think you're trying to again, the circumstances were such, he was trying to bypass preparation. So there's very different actual goals of the openings within particular World Chess Championships. If you imagine Spassky had a huge team of Russians backing him, trying to find chinks in Fischer's repertoire, Fischer switched his repertoire to avoid masses of preparation. But back then also the culture of the time, technology far less than now, far less potential for easy preparation. These databases we have now, we're in the world of information right now. And AI approaching. Having this conversation with brother and friend last night about how Amazon could be the start of the end, because because those delivery drones, what if the laws are influenced by money? Amazon start putting laws around people not smashing up delivery drones, and that's could be the beginning of the end for things. I don't know. We're in a high-tech world right now. So rook a7. I'm going to be losing a pawn if I'm not careful, right? Does it matter about losing b7? I mean, it probably does, yeah. I think if I can wait for a moment, I mean, I want to play e4 and f4 to really blunt out the e4 square. If I played knight d4 immediately, it takes. I don't like losing b7 just for absolutely nothing. All right, this position might be more interesting. Okay, I'll give e4. I'm swapping e4, some light square pressure for some dark square pressure. I think, yeah. I mean, there was a time people thought technology's changed so much. There was a time people thought IBM was so dominant, and then there was Microsoft. Everyone thought like Microsoft was impervious to any potential changes, and then the internet came along, and then Google. But then now it seems for me, Amazon, it's like how things, the technology giants change at the top. I don't know. It's rapidly. There's no constant giant at the top. I think for me. The way things have changed. But anyway, so back to this game for a moment. Knight f5. I mean, right now it looks as though Amazon's like the giant to me, because it's like a media giant, it's like technology giant. You can do a lot of technology there, and giant money-making machine. As people have these subscriptions, all these things. I think, yeah, I just used to think it was. Used to, at one point, think it was Microsoft, then it was Google. Now I think it's Amazon, like at the top. But maybe. Okay, so D5. Is D5 any good? Is D5? Just to try and blunt this bishop. If C5, knight C6, mind you, there's knight D6. Yeah, I think the open. I mean, I think Kasparov said it that. You know, the style of play is influenced by the era you're in. The era you're in is influenced by like technology and the, you know, the culture and history. You know, you can put games in a context, historical context. Isn't that just winning the exchange? So the actual openings are like a reflection of the times we're in as well. If I take here and rook c8, just to undo my pawns, but yeah, I've exposed b7. So this is a problem, exposing b7. Is that? Ooh. Now, I don't like losing my light squares particularly, you know. So I think I might let him off. I don't know. Or should I? Should I dare? I guess, unless there's infinite proof. Not infinite proof. Why am I saying infinite proof? I don't want to drop b7. Hold on a second. I don't want to drop b7. Am I going to get mated on the light squares? That's the thing. No, I don't need infinite proof. I need some proof that I'm not getting mated on the light squares. If I play king h8 and just wait for this battery, bishop and queen, somehow defend it soon. This knight's not infiltrating too easily, right? Oh, there's g4 immediately to be concerned about. If I get to play queen f6, okay, holding d6. Oh, there's knight e3 here. Takes. That's a resource. Because then, if the bishop moves, there's queen f2. In fact, even in this position, I kind of like this idea of spicing things up. In fact, that position, there's rook c3. Yeah, if I take the other way. Wow, I'll take this way for rook c3. Trying to liberate this diagonal while the rook's on a1. Incredible idea, but I mean, well, you know, not totally incredible idea, but I think it might work for a moment. Now fg is on f2. That looks mega dangerous, this position, because I'm on f2. In fact, queen f1 is mating on with rook f1 with the knight guarding the exit square. Queen f2, queen h2 if f takes. But I think, yeah, queen f2, yeah, this queen h2 is mating here. Alright, thanks for the game, Shadow Mate. Okay, Kaz, 1616. But I got an idea. There's one game which was kind of symbolic for me for one of the classical wins. It was extremely grueling between Karyakin and Carlsen. Carlsen eventually broke through with a pass pawn, but you know, engines revealed actually it was only because like Karyakin kind of slipped a little bit. But I mean, the pressure was all from Magnus, the pressure to win. But it was like that was like 90 move game or something, and I thought that was symbolic of how these two are so super solid with each other. You have these long, grueling games sometimes to get a decisive result. That was in their classical encounters. Now, this could be tricky, right? Let's bite this pawn chain. Yep. I'll try and get d4, bishop e6 to accept the double pawns. Or not. The double pawns are a bit of a liability, right? Maybe knight d4 is safer. Now, if bishop g5, what about rook d6? Or is that silly? I want to play bishop e6. Now, there is bishop e7, maybe rook b6. This is getting adventurous. Rook b6. Now, bishop b7, rook b8, I get a bit of play. Now here, I think I do want to take with the rook. I'm probably double behind this with f6 first, of course, to be able to play knight f3 for rook takes d1. So f6, rook d6, rook d8, knight f3. If I got a few moves in, okay, it's not check anymore. It's no big deal. A pawn on d4 is pass pawn here. I don't think I expected anything less than the draws, actually. I don't think I expected a mega exciting World Championship match. I mean, you can tell from other World Championship maps, it's just the classical tone to them, the classical, very super solid tone to them, these matches. That you shouldn't expect, obviously, the same openings as people trying to win a Swiss tournament or something, whereas like 5 or 6 rounds, you got to like destroy people to win a prize. It's not like that at all. You just have to win one of the games, especially in a 12-game match, just one of the games. So the tone is set. Now, yeah, this is a bit risky, isn't it? This f5 is a bit vulnerable to knight g3 coming up, but I think there's rook d5. I'm hoping there's rook d5. Now this, there's infiltration points. I'll cover e6 for a moment. So knight g3, rook d5. This could be a little bit tricky, actually. If rook c8, knight d4, if I go back for the pin there, does that actually work? I think it does, actually. That might be immune to capture. If I played rook c, let's have a quick look at this. Rook c8, knight takes, rook d8. Where does the knight go without losing d3? In which case, am I free to play rook c8 for rook c2? I'm hoping I'm free to do this. Okay. And if I start pushing these pawns to try and puncture the dark squares, so b5, b4, a4, it could be good for an endgame to get a pawn on, say, a3. He'll take, and now if he took there, there's nothing for me there, right? What about rook c4 here? So b3 creates some dark square weaknesses, but how useful are they? There might be b5, and again, how useful is it? Not entirely sure. Okay, this takes some thinking about. How would I improve the position here? Can I wonder with the king over? The king could go to b4 potentially. If it went to b4, well, I don't want to self-mate. I can also got this other plan of h5, h4. I could go to, now knight c3 is almost possible there, right? Let's get this position first. See where my king can go. Maybe it can support b5. If it was an a6, it would support b5. But what would that support? Let's try and isolate the f pawn. If g4. There's also a backward pawn here. It's interesting in chat how you can try and spend time. I'll try and invest a minute to try and see any downsides now of white's position. Potentially backward pawn here, potential b5 break Doesn't have to be taken. I mean, there's no immediate downside, right, of white's position. But I wonder, if I put my king on a6 for b5, b4, what about then rook c8 to c3? So, I could try this plan. And actually, I'm not really sure this is doing anything right now. I can actually just try and get a pair of rooks off, though. More simple. Yeah, what about if I just did this? Check here to take here would weaken a4. Now, king b4, again, there's not significant enough pressure, but the king can relieve the rook. With king d5, it can relieve the rook. Although there's knight c3 check there. So if I played this first to avoid knight c3 check, so king d5 without knight c3 check. So getting this position, that frees my rook for rook c2. Now, am I making any progress? Is there any downsides here of white's position? I think the fact that I can play king e4 is dangerous for d3. That would be a pin if king f2, king e4. That might be a slight downside of white's position. Because you can imagine then d3, rook d3, bishop d4 check. If the king was on f2, king e4, rook moves, d3 is just supported by the king. It would just be winning the knight. This is almost zugzwangy. The king's got to hold e4. The rook can move to d1. Now, unless I'm getting into a self-mate, which would be embarrassing, knight c3 would be mating if it wasn't for the pawn. But I think it's the move to try out. It's pinned anyway. So the question is d3. It looks as though white's at breaking point here, actually. Just d3, the knight's pinned. Alright, thanks for the game, Kaz. Thanks for the game. Alright, Peter m1. Okay. Let's play e4. And a Vienna game. Now, if black's not totally aware of the Vienna game, it's quite easy to get a bad position out of it, because it is a bit of a surprise from the Royal pairs or other systems, the Vienna game. And some people have described it as a kind of safer King's Gambit. Here, I'm getting a lot of the perks of the King's Gambit, actually, in terms of the F-file and central aggressive pawns. There are a lot of perks here. I don't know if I should be using the term trump cards, but it was a term I was using before Donald Trump got in, trump cards. But there are some certain trump cards here to play with. Okay, so e5, knight f3, bishop d3. I had an over the board confession time. I had an over the board game, which I thought had a good position against this FM. It was a Muswell Hill match, and I blew things totally in his time pressure. I haven't done the video of it yet, but I've been mentioning it a bit as therapy. Yeah, I looked at it after, and I couldn't sleep. I was analysing the game during the night in my head. I really couldn't sleep. Ended up getting really late, up late, and the thing is, I don't know if any of you play over the board chess. I had accumulated something like a 25-minute advantage. And now, the time it was such, it was already like 3 hours in. No, more than 3 hours in. So I regret now not spending like 20 minutes to find issues in the opponent's position, what I'd call downsides in the opponent's position. And at the time, I find, because I've been playing a lot of Blitz, it's actually difficult to have that discipline, because Blitz is like instant gratification all the time for anything you do. But in this grueling game against an FM, if you ever have that situation where you've got 25 minutes on your clock in a club game, I'm talking about club game, not FIDE. This might be a tip. I mean, it's just theory for me. It's a new one to try out next week. I've got is spend the 20 minutes trying to see the downsides of the opponent's position, not the strengths, the downsides of the opponent's position. That's my new theory. If I have a 20-minute clock advantage, because we put it through an engine, the engine finds a downside very quickly. It's like intuitively, it was heading for a position where there's this pawn breakthrough, so he's creating a protected passed pawn, but there was a slight weakness. There was this move which actually won this other pawn, crashed through the H file, and I think I would have been able to find it if I just put the time in. I think it's almost like the contrast between over the board chess and online Blitz is gigantic for the time investment and level of regret for me. I just have some sleepless nights after. In fact, one thing I found is actually video annotating the game is like a bit of therapy, or even just talking about it is a bit of therapy for how I would improve for the next time. But chess is a painful thing in over the board. For me, it is a very painful thing potentially, but it's that pain which causes new ideas, which is the thing. It's new ideas and entering the head, how to play in certain scenarios. If you've got a clock advantage, you know, you want to be on top of all the downsides of the opponent's position, not the strengths. You don't want to marvel at, well, I mean, you'd think it's a balance of knowing what the opponent's capable of, but in chess, I think you've got limited resources, so you're either often attacking or defending. If you try and mix both, you're literally splitting your resources up quite a lot. But yeah, anyway, it's torturous sometimes. I've just got to say, the amount of time you can spend and just like blow 5 hours on the last 20 minutes. It's a pain. It's true pain. I don't know if anyone's had that recently on stream here. Has anyone had any painful over the board games this week? Because it is the over the board season, yeah. All right, so bishop g6 takes rook f7. It looks pretty good now. This looks like a fantastic position now. Okay. By the way, in case you weren't aware of this, in one of the games in World Championship, there's a hidden queen sack line. I hope you all know about it. It is a fascinating variation where in the game where Kariak had missed queen c6, thanks for the game Peter M won. In that game where he played this bishop takes h6, there was a hidden queen sack he'd been calculating, and it was phenomenal to realize the reason he'd played all this bishop takes h6. He'd obviously missed queen c6, but what he was expecting was knight takes e4, rook takes e4, f5, and then he would do a queen sack on f3 with rook takes c4. So if it takes rook takes c7 check. It was a fantastic line, just sitting in what seems to be a boring game, but the variations behind these games are absolutely amazing. And you know, there's variations lurking even in game 6, to be honest, even in positions that commentators have just switched off, where you get these subtle little moves, yeah, like queen e1, as if it's about b4, sorry, king h2. It's like tempting you know, queen d3 for queen e7 for bishop e5. There's temptations to try and attack, but you don't see all these lines. You really need to see the detailed annotations, which are hard to get, because people on YouTube generally try and you know, make the video less than like 20 minutes. But it's the beauty is really in a lot of the variations. The beautiful ideas are beneath the surface. But the blunder was for me a real eye opener. You know, that blunder of in that game with bishop takes h6. The ideas behind it were fantastic. I don't think c3. It's a bit of a poison pawn, isn't it? Queen d3. I've spent 30 minutes blundering my queen a week ago. Still bothers me. A1 4-4. My advice to you would be to try and video annotate the game. Not video annotate. You can video annotate it locally. By the way, even if none of you have a YouTube channel, what you can do if you get something like XSplit or just an old media encoder, is just record all your video locally. And it's actually, for me, very cathartic. I'm actually a very bad loser over the board, but I find it very cathartic to get a more scientific angle on why you lost and try and actually draw some broad brush conclusions sometimes, so you can apply to the positions similar that you might have in other games. So not just conclusions just for that very specific game, some broader brush conclusions sometimes, I mean, for me, it's interesting to draw. But to start with an annotation, it can actually be a form of, you know, pain relief. If you have an over the board game you spent hours and you lost, for me, it's definitely I find it a form of pain relief, and I should really you know, video annotate this game recently. I should do that soon as well. I mean, I've been talking about it, which helps as well. Okay, so I'm on e6 here. It might be worth taking that and knight e5. I mean, it's possible that this position is attractive because it seems to be a very strong knight, which can't be kicked away that easily. And if I can get in f4, rook f3, rook g3, I know that blunts this diagonal, but actually to avoid f4 might be a good safety policy as well, which opens up the bishop. But if he plays f4, I think queen f3 hits d5 and hits f4. And it might be possible to play bishop f4. All right, I'm going to play this anyway. For rook f3, rook g3. I just think, yeah, to get over a loss where you've invested a ton of time, if you can somehow get, it's very difficult sometimes, but sometimes get this more scientific angle to it. If you can start analysing it and just draw some conclusions. And was it Capablanca said you learn the most from your losses, and that is true. It's all right for him to say he didn't lose much, though. There was a time he didn't lose much at all. It's funny that he would say that. The guy that hardly lost any games. Yeah. Okay. Now, what am I doing here? Bishop a5, bishop b6. What I can do, I think, is get the bishop out of the way. I'm going to stick it on b6 here. And I think I'm interested in playing g4 at some point. This looks like a monster knight. We've both got these monster knights. I'm just wondering if I can play g4 at some point without getting killed from this bishop. I'm not going to open up the bishop, right? But I think the g4 plan here might be useful because I've got my rooks ready almost for the g file. Oh, he's playing aggressively as well. There is an exchange sack with... No, there isn't. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. I'm gonna take this. I was going to attack him, but he's saving me the bother because he's opening up some weaknesses. So I'm just going to tap into his weaknesses. Well, it looks like that. I mean, I'm hoping I'm in a better position for what he's just done. He's created the weaknesses without me having to open up any lines. It's a bit like Petrosian-esque. Petrosian would do that against Spassky. He'd just sit there and tease Spassky to attack him. Then all of a sudden, Petrosian's hijacking all the open lines which Spassky created. And it seems like a terrible thing to do in chess, but it is a legitimate way of playing, I guess. It's provocation. Takes here. There isn't a check on f4 after. So the 2 rooks for the queen. I'm not sure about that. The knight on e4, I mean, justifies his attack actually. Like the knight on e5 might justify my pressure. Can I quickly use this g file? The bishop's actually not in play. If the rook moved, okay, we've got a very interesting position here. There's even queen h4, knight g6, knight h4 with king h8. There might be simpler. There might be just rook g6 trying to nudge the queen away to e7. This knight on e4 bothers me. Isn't there just rook h3, by the way? Yeah, rook h3 looks like a good check in this position. Yeah, what black has just created this massive vacuum of weaknesses. Okay, thanks, Sir Alex. Azul Mist. Yeah, there's a classic Petrosian Spassky game where yeah, Petrosian just ended with a beautiful queen h8 check. If you haven't seen that game, you must find it. It's a really fantastic. It's actually on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. Petrosian against Spassky, like brilliancy. If I took a knight g4, isn't that dangerous? Because I'm threatening d4 as well as knight e3. I know it's like pedantic, but it does seem like really dangerous just to play knight g4, because I'm hitting d4 and I'm threatening knight e3. Mind you, there is knight f3, right? That holds things together. Knight f3. Fair point. Good point. If I try and play for knight e3, I suppose there's rook e1. Chess is not easy. I'm not sure I mind h3. I can slip back to h6 and then to f5. c5, I'm not sure. There might be some downsides of c5. That's really interesting. That f4 seems a bit vulnerable. There's also knight e3 here, which I don't think helps. Queen f6, would that provoke g3? Still, I've got this pin on the d pawn. If I can provoke g3, that's extra knight square weaknesses. h5, I think. Just so to say to h3, I can move back here without g4. Not that g4 looks that terrifying. Now there's only one shared open file, so the opponent could get rid of both rooks. Okay, and if I play bishop c6 here, is that a legitimate idea to double the pawns there when the bishop takes? Fascinating. Bishop h6, there's always a knight g5. c4, there's never going to be d5, not for a while because of that pin. Aha. Now that weakens d4. This queen sack here. There, king f1, knight h2 is mate. King h1, knight f2. That's good for a laugh. Because there's like knight e4 winning the queen after. I think that's good for a laugh. I mean, there's a seesaw check. Oh, I can't resist it, guys. I can't resist it. So this is, I can't resist it. Yes, I'm trying to imitate the Rubinstein Immortal game. Rubinstein played a game where he had these enormous bishops lurking around white's king. So king f1, knight h2 is mate, and otherwise I'm getting this seesaw check. Pretty destructive seesaw check mechanism if he doesn't play queen f2. The thing is, there's king f1 there. So my first thought to win the queen back, maybe that's the practical thing to do, is try and just win the queen back with knight e4. Because I think there's a weak back row. Unless he plays king f1, the king, it would be a weak back row. King f1's not the sort of move. Okay, he has played it. Now, isn't there just taking and bishop c3? I think this little combination has worked. I wasn't really going to mention queen d4, but because I thought it was just so absolutely outrageous. But then actually it did seem to work. That's the funny thing about forcing moves. They sometimes actually, by magic, seem to work sometimes. Crazy stuff. I mean, I think it might have actually been sound. I'm left the exchange up here, and also if I play rook e8 f6, all right, I can just create a pass pawn scenario at the very least. So yeah, this looks pretty good. I'm on e6 now, so no time to take here. Yes, it looks as though this is very good now. Yeah, these forcing moves, yeah, fascinating how they changed the position. Thanks for the game. This Banter. Okay, hi, this is Derbatio. Did you press the tick box for creating a game? I wonder. While I'm waiting, I'm going to crunch an almond. Hope you don't mind, guys. Or two. Okay. Drink some coffee. It looks as though he didn't press the tick box. Shall we abort? Oh yes, I did lose a game against an IM recently. I thought I was complete. It was only a 3-minute game, and he just ended up playing amazing moves to save. But I was a bit disturbed. I don't know if you noticed. There were about 8 draw offers in that game, which I thought was very naughty. Because it was almost like disturbing me a bit. I don't want to like complain too much. But I don't know, do you remember there were like 8 draw offers as well from this IM? But anyway, I think there should be some sort of limit threshold for draw offers, you know, in online, because I think in FIDE you can't do too many draw offers because it can be seen as a distraction of the opponent. Okay. Oh, it is my turn, right? E4. Yeah, white plays first. Now I'm sick of playing Smith Morris, so let's just try playing ordinary Sicilian. Because I'm actually sick of the positions of the Smith Morris, so I'm going to be adventurous with whatever this says. Tempting knight d5, you know. Actually, you know, I don't have to commit to casting queenside here. I can try and just play for queenside pressure. There's a bit of controversy. If black's just geared up for attacking on the queenside, this structure has been exposed. And I wonder about just playing for queenside pressure now. Something like rook a4 might threaten even rook c4. I mean, it's crazy, but if I'd castled, this rook's not going to be putting pressure on black's queenside. Now here, okay, I'm a pawn down for a moment, but there seems to be gigantic queenside pressure in this position. I like the bishops pointing to the queenside. I mean, maybe even queen. I don't really want to get the queens off. I think yeah, hold on. Yeah, c4, there's knight b3. And also d5 is weak after e6, so the knight could be a liability as well. So it's not all fun and games, basically. If I took e6, yeah, maybe I should just take that off and take it here. That gives me c4 without getting killed. I'm on a6. e6 takes, queen takes that position. Don't think there's anything for me there. Maybe just c4 here on e6. Right, c4 here, unless there's anything cleverer. There is bishop c4, and if e6, castle, no, I think I'll go with c4. Yeah, have I created tactical liability? I can pin that pawn for a moment with queen e3. That looks like a rather pedantic move, but I need to stop my position crumbling. There's no knight g4 here. This might be justified. I need to stop this crumbling because knight c6 remains a tactical liability. One point of it could be just take on e7 and then just take on e6. Mind you, I can play bishop d3 and just keep the pressure there. I think I can play bishop d3. Would he dare take that? I'm not sure he would. Right, the knight's kind of useful there for a moment. Keep this pin on e7. Any downsides? Black's position. There's definitely a downside of my position. Okay, if I take and then d takes, no, not sure I'm liking that. I'll play b4. Now c5, queen takes d5, rook takes bishop e4. Try and treble on the e file. No, my knight's loose. I don't want to run out of time either, particularly. So I don't like this particularly. Okay. Nope, don't like it. Knight d4 takes knight f5. Yes, really testing this. I'm collapsing and I'm down on the clock. This isn't good. At least there's knight e6 here. I thought bishop e6. I thought pinning the knight was killing. Okay, so I'm a minute down on the clock. That king f8 I just didn't factor in at all, funny enough, from earlier. But queen c5, knight e6, bishop b5. Try and use this e file. Anything clever here? G4, G5. Trying to use the E8 square. If I have to play G4, G5, I know it's pretty radical, but maybe that's with tempo. Bishop B5 here for rook E8. It's with tempo. That gives me queen E3 threatening rook, queen E8 mate. I think he should have had that pin on D4. This shouldn't have been the scenario he's in. Queen H3 holds the queen to H2, but again queen E2 is dangerous then. Holds H2, threatens queen E8 mate. That's G6. G6 holds. Let's check. Knight E6. Check. King moves. Try this for a moment. So G6, Queen E6, Knight E6. I'll take the bishop. Is there any check? I'll just take the bishop with this Knight E6. So G6, Queen E7. There's Knight E6. I'll take the bishop. Without any check over, there's Knight F4. Knight F4, there's Queen F6 check potentially. Is anything stronger than knight takes c7? Is rook e2? Oh, there's bishop f1. Hold on. Okay. Here. Just stop knight f4. Oh. He had me earlier. Yeah, definitely. I was totally busted. I think you could have just got a pin, MGTOW. I'm pains to show you this, but this was definitely, I was dead. As far as I can see, we're just going to confirm this. Not autoplay. No, not autoplay. It's not autoplay. It's just looking at it without the engine. Just bishop b6. I thought it was the end of me, bishop b6. Because then just d takes coming up, yeah? And that's the end. I can say goodbye. This pin on the e file. So tip, you neutralize all the pins of the opponent and indulge yourself trying to torture with your own pins on the opponent after. If you've neutralized my pins, I'm going to give you the ammunition to destroy me for a future game here. Pin and win, but you neutralize the pins on the e-file resourcefully with king f8. But this would be a killer because I haven't got a dark square bishop, right? This is just a total end of game. You know. Anyway. Okay. Oh, I'm playing. Oh, this is an increment game, is it? Is it a 4-2? Did I see 4-2 or something? Is there a resource? No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a resource. Is this 4-2? Where does it say the increment? I thought I saw something like 4-2. Make sure there's no premium challenges, but non-premium. Knight F. Okay, might need to check that out again. Do you think there was a resource? Okay, is this an increment? I'm confused now. I thought I saw something weird about the time control. I'm at 356. Yeah. Let me see what happens if I play a move instantly. Is there a 2-second increment? 355. 350. Yeah, 2-second increment. Okay. All right. We got a 2-second increment per move. This is exotic. Just as long as the increment's not too much, we don't want a particular game lasting forever. Okay. Yeah, because it's the time limits. It's about finding the downsides, isn't it, in the time limit. It's difficult in Blitz to find any downsides or anything. This is why I need to acclimatize to longer games. You can really delve into, I mean, especially positions which look intuitively fantastic have downsides, but you need the time. You need the time to find them. I think that's my theory. Anyway, I'm going to try it next week and tell you what I found. My new theory next week. But yeah, in Blitz, it's like we're just spectating the position. Really, it's very difficult to get accuracy, isn't it? To look at any downsides of anything in Blitz. I'm hoping this F file is useful. Now, taking maybe like c4, knight c3, just to put pressure on the d5 on the center here. All right, just want to put pressure on the center. So knight c3, and I'm hoping to get this rook to e1 later. It seems as though black has the King's Gambit is another surprise weapon, really. I think black has improvised. Have I missed any forcing moves? Bishop takes, check. There's always g6, right? Now, this knight c6 is really annoying, yeah? Is it? You know, rook f7. Hang on a sec. Knight e5. No, it takes... my queen's protecting. Alright, the question is this possible? Knight e5 I take, then. I'm hoping it's possible. Now, I'm not getting mated on the back row just yet, am I? Bishop c5, I know I can't take as queen f7, but king h1, there's no queen d1 right now. There is queen d4. Takes, knight b5, rook d7. Oh, it's getting a bit messy. There is bishop c5 available as well. Alright, so knight b5. Or there's rook c7 for knight b5, just picking up a pawn. It's an extra pawn. I can hit another pawn. Oh, I've gone into a gigantic pin. Oh, that was dumb. I've just lost the piece. Oh boy. I have actually just lost the piece on an increment game, which isn't a very good idea to lose a piece on, especially. Oh! Oh. You don't want to lose a piece on the increment game, particularly. I guess it's because it's 2-second increment. My opponent seems a bit slow. That I guess I should play on. Play the odds. It's a bit slow. I think I'll try and keep pressure. And you. I should accept the draw. Blunders. Horribly. Thanks to the game. I fell asleep there. And bad on the increment game to do that. Fall asleep. That's for sure. I deserve to lose. Obviously. Yep. Okay. Hi, Moby. If it was any more than 2 second increment, it's totally resignable. But 2 second increment is like I can do something to create some pressure, potentially. Okay, so this is main line Caracan at the moment. Let's go back here to avoid the doubled pawns. Same pattern actually. That knight pin was the same pattern as what was missed in the previous game. So it came around again. The knight pin, the dreaded knight pin on d4 scenario. c4. This looks weird unless the idea is queen f5, but that's structural damage. Can I play like this for bishop c3? I don't like that structure if black's going to take away from the center with queen f5. This looks interesting for bishop c3. I'm also threatening maybe c5. If black has to play c5, bishop c3. Right, there's queen f4. Queen f4, queen e2, rook h4, rook g4. Is that any big deal in any way, shape or form? Alright, I didn't like the structure here, so I'm happy if that's really... Well, in fact, knight h4. What does black do about knight h4 there? f4, knight f5. Disconnected for a moment, hold on. No g6. If there's f4, there's knight f5. That's a fantastic knight on f5. Bishop moves somewhere. I'm on g7 with d5 potentially. Might be a better way of playing this than d5. Although it does look tempting. There's bishop e5 after. If there's knight e5, there's d6, but bishop e5. If I hold down for a moment against bishop e5, so I'm threatening d5. Okay, is there any difference here at all to bishop e5? Maybe there's a target with knight d6 now. So bishop e5 I take. Well, that's good because I'm on g7. There's no bishop e5. In fact, there's rook e7 now. Doesn't rook e7 almost? There's rook d8. So maybe just bishop g7. Or just cd. Maybe just cd. So I'm on g7. Rook e7 is also dangerous, but there's rook d8. I think bishop g7 might be just pliable. Might be better than knight g7 just to keep the knight on f5. The knight's not easy to kick from f5 after bishop g7. Okay, so situation here, I think it's difficult for black. This queen f5, didn't like it at the time. Like it even less now. I mean, from my opponent's perspective, I mean, because the knight on f5 is pretty, this is trump cards all around the shop. E-file, pass pawn, coordinate pieces. Let's just play bishop f6, d6. For d7, that looks dangerous. There is rook e8. But also knight h6. What is this rook e7? What about this rook e7? You can keep the knight on f5 here. It takes. Then there's knight f7. That's cute, sort of. Thanks for the game, Obi. Thanks for the game. That was difficult after queen f5. Structurally compromised. Don G, who nearly beat me last week. I'm going to have to be wary about Don G. I think I'm going to use the London system. That Roy Lopez last week, I still wake up in the middle of the night. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. In horror, you know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. that was a joke. No. It's my over the board games that I can't sleep with. It's the over the board. Because it's the time investment. I don't really think I'm in too much pain after any online blitz. Psychologically. Some over the board losses, it's not just the first night I lose sleep, it's the second night and the third night. But it helps when I video annotate after. Now, is he going to sack on h3? Oh my god, I'm worried. I'm ready for bishop h3. I'm going to play bishop f1. Hang on, he's got e4 here. Have I just lost the piece to e4? I've lost the piece to e4, haven't I? Yep. e4 just wins a piece there. Let's give the knight a square. Let's give this knight a square. I think e4 is just winning a piece. Oh man, I was worried about bishop h3 because I wanted to play bishop f1. Anyway. I've managed to achieve the goal of protecting h3 without e4 actually winning the knight. Here, there's actually the g1 square available now. I'm hoping he's creating some weaknesses in his position at some point. This hack attack with g4 now. Yeah, I'm just getting attacked here. I don't know what to do particularly. Just waiting. I'm waiting like Petrosian. Did I mention I think it's a legitimate style of play, Petrosian? There's d5 here. This is a bit too much. d5 winning a piece again. A bit too much comedy for one game. What about if I play d5 then rook e4? I'm happier winning this pawn for a moment, but now there's an f3 coming, is there? If I took this bishop and played c4, f3, I'm going to take the bishop. Because I'm going to say basically f3 I'll take on e5. And then think about g4 or something. I'm trying to expose his king here on f3. There's also queen h5 I've just missed. I should have considered queen h5. It defends the area and it attacks at the same time. And in fact, on king g7 there's almost bishop d3 if it were not for e4. So queen h5, king g7, rook e1. To be able to play bishop d3 for queen g6. It's very Petrosian-esque because it's the opponent that's actually, again, opened himself up. He's threatening knight f2 here. Okay, that would be embarrassing. Trying to avoid this disaster. Oh, there's knight f2 there. Can I give my king some air? I'm on e5. Maybe king g1, I'm going into the g file. Okay, my only threat at the moment seems to be knight e5. Actually, there's queen a1. This could be nifty. Queen a1. And handy. It's actually quite handy. If I lose an exchange here, I think there's more and more weaknesses around black's king if I lose an exchange here. I'm threatening knight g6 and queen c3 and bishop f4. I think knight g6 just to pick up some material, and there's bishop d3 and knight f8. So I get an exchange back, or I can just play knight f4 for knight e6. How's my back row? Oh, that's interesting. Right, there's bishop f4 here. And g4. If I take, yeah, what I find myself playing like Petrosian in 1 or 2 games this session for some reason. Thanks to the game, Don G. Okay, Killer Cat. I remember this game once in the British Major Open against a stronger player at the time, higher rated, where he did win a knight, like just for nothing it seemed, on f3, but it opened up his king a bit, and I got a winning attack after. Sometimes you can accidentally kind of get the opponent to create weaknesses around their king by luring them materialistically, I suppose. It sort of has a classical feel to it at the moment. But actually I wish I played a more mainline Royal Pairs just for fun. Just to celebrate the World Chess Championship. Simba7, okay, I'll try and find you after this game. It's not a World Championship game, so I'm going to play G5. I'm going to try and spice things up. So knight f4 and bishop d7 and castle queenside, and try and use the G file. I don't think that knight's easy to tolerate here on f4. In fact, I'm wondering about, well, doesn't that lose d3 by the way if I played b5? I suppose he's got bishop d5. Was that really the intention? Okay, I can spend the time here to find some downsides of white's position. It's clear that that's not an immediate fatality, because b5 there's bishop d5 on c6 knight, otherwise knight d3. There's another potential thing here with this pawn chain. If I could sack on h3, can't get a battery though that easily for bishop h3. g4 might be interesting, because then after rook g4, assuming that pin holds, then there's rook g3, but white's going to play d4 anyway. So I think bishop d7 just to be able to castle queenside for the moment. Put things on hold. This pin might renew if d4, say d5, the pin renews, which makes g4 more effective, because I'll be threatening after rook g4, rook takes g3 if I had that pin. The knight's holding things up anyway. It's better to sometimes have a bit more safety before going on to the attack. The art of war says you should put yourself beyond defeat before going on the attack anyway. In the art of war, there's some wisdom to that, I think. Alright, here queen h4 looks very good if the knight moves. This looks very attacking all of a sudden. Queen h1. Stop the exit. Thanks for the game, Killer Cat. Okay, Simba, yeah, we got a game. We got a game. Okay. I'll try and play this knight c6 business. Gambit. It's not a world championship match. Although this is not particularly clever, probably, by me. Can I play knight e5 here? This looks strange, doesn't it? Queen h5 g6. Yes, I'm making this opening up as I go along. I should have played the Royal of Paz. What am I doing? I feel bad playing this now. Why didn't I play the Royal of Paz? This is just nonsense. F5 knight e5. Holds f7 for a moment, I suppose. I've got this check, and maybe d5, and things get a little bit better, I hope. I'm take with the queen. Or maybe the bishop. No, I don't like giving myself such a terrible opening. I guess I'm just attracted sometimes by the surprise value potentially of systems, but they have horrible downsides. They really do. It's bad opening. And get to play without losing material, I hope, this move. Bishop e8, bishop f7. Is there rook d8? Try and grovel out of this. If I can connect rooks and play rook d8, king g8, I'll be a lot happier. Take this guy off. No immediate fatality on the diagonal. King's away from dark square for rook d6, bishop c5 to be avoided. If I can play bishop e7, I'll be happier. It's not good to try and grovel from these sort of openings in general, of course. Okay, e6 needs to be held. Can I play bishop f8? Oh, there's b4. This is dangerous. Queen b3 later. It's 30 seconds each. Get the queens off. I'm happier with the queens off. Yeah, thanks for the game. No, I feel ashamed. The opening I played. Quite often I'm having good results in bullet with this surprise weapon, yeah. But I think this is a very critical test just to take. And I have played it like this quite in bullet. Which is maybe better than the game continuation. What I've done here is, this is more dodgy bullet style. That, okay, it's a 3-minute game, so that's why I'm able to perhaps get away with it. But this is just asking to get completely demolished straight from the opening. Okay, which is probably why the World Championship openings are very good for me to watch, to know what it is to play solidly in the openings, yeah? To play solidly in the openings is not to create loads of weaknesses, as an example, I suspect. And to be able to castle. But it does add entertainment value, I suppose, when you do play things like less solid openings and gambits. So try and safeguard b7. Try and stop b6 as a pawn structural break. Right. Can I start playing on the king side? It's sort of like King's Indian defense transposition, actually. Well, style of play. If I can play rook e8, f5, f4. That's ruled out at the moment, f4 surely. So I've taken on c3. If I can play queen d7, bishop h3. Just try and weaken my opponent a little bit. Or is that not happening? Is this move possible without getting blasted? If I can play bishop h3, maybe take some bishop h3, f5, I take here. Try and soften up these light squares a bit. Can I soften up the light squares? Or do I get blasted? Or knight c7's hanging. So if I take first, crap backwards c7 pawn here. This is the downside, one immediate downside. I'm creating a backwards c7 pawn. Outpost square on c6 if he wants to take with cd. I think that would be the natural way to take cd for the outpost and c7 backward pawn. He's kind of protected my c7 pawn by not taking like this. So that idea of weakening the light squares is seeing the light of day. Here is f5 playable. Or is there some sack on g6? I think it's good to check out all the forcing moves as a sort of testament of solidity. If it can withstand knight g6, if f5 can withstand knight g6, you can say that f5 is solid enough. You've got to check the dynamic forcing moves. Now here it is a protected pass pawn, but a blockade on f4. I don't really want to do that because it looks allow this knight on e6. I think I might even sack the exchange at some point. Here, yeah. I've got the protected pass pawn. It's a pawn for the exchange. I've got some dark square play. But the protected pass pawn, rook e8, knight g4 is already weakened on light squares. With that sort of thing, bishop g7. If I take after, then there's knight e3 and queen c5. King g2, knight e3 check. King h1, like knight f2. I think I'm going to be getting back the exchange at some point. Tactically, it looks very dangerous for white after knight g4. There's only two pawns around the king as well. Protected pass pawn. With knight g4, it looks pretty interesting here. Knight g4 with tempo. I know the bishop's protected, but even so, this queen c5 business. You know what? I'm wondering if I should have just take on f4, because this ending might also be interesting. I'm can go back to that position. Let's invite this ending. In fact, if he takes, then I'll have pressure on c4. This knight's going to have a field fest with knight e5 to d3 after. But basically, he's like having a sort of virtual backward pawn here if he wants that position. I'll keep control of the diagonal. e3 looks tempting on the rook. His queen can't move too far. e3, knight f2 looks very dangerous anyway. Just try and get the exchange back. His rook's hanging. I'm threatening mate here. Alright, thanks for the game. Thanks for the game, Chicanti. Anas. Yes. I mean, sometimes you just got to go for the easy to play positions rather than allowing the knight on e6. Just sack the exchange. If it's for a pawn, all you have to worry about generally in the blitz game is if you're going to get another pawn anytime soon or extra. You just have to look at the trend of evaluation. If there's going to be a little bit more, then if you can see that there's an upward trend, that might be enough to justify an exchange sack. If you're immediately getting a pawn, and this even works in long games of Nakamura, I've noticed, he can often just sack an exchange. And even if it's not for a pawn, you just look at somehow the trend of evaluation. You just get evidence that there's an upward trend of evaluation. And that can be enough, because otherwise you'll end up never playing dynamically, because you can actually never get the justification to play dynamically. There's got to be a clue somewhere that the evaluation trend is upwards, and I felt in that game that it might be. So I think that was enough, exchange and a pawn with a potentially upwards evaluation trend. Otherwise, how would you play dynamically? You'll never, it's like, yeah. Isn't there, okay. It's queen e6, there's knight c7. If the queen moves away, there's like ed check. And DC check, F king d8. I think that might be good, but also bishop g5 might be good. Well, either. I think I can support the knight with c4. I think Nakamura, by the way, is one of my favourite super GMs because of the dynamic style of play. c5 here, queen d5, isn't that queen a6? Isn't that mating? If I'm playing c5, queen takes, just check this out again, queen a6. No, because king d7. That's a downer, isn't it? Although, hang on. There's queen b7 there, threatening c7 check. Queen b7, threatening c8 check. I mean, what happens there? Rook c8. It gets maybe unnecessarily messy. What about just getting the light square bishop? Or getting out of this pin for knight e5. In fact, taking, okay, there's just knight e5 here. Right, this is the rook's coming in a bit now. But he can take it and take on c7, but it's not ideal. He can do that to get the pawn. The light squares are a bit weaker. Maybe just g4 and bishop g2. In fact, here, you know, just bishop g2. I mean, it's good to connect rooks generally. The bishop's much better on g2. I think ideas like queen e4, knight b6 for queen b7 mating emerge now with this battery. Queen e4 threatens knight b6 and queen b7. Queen c6, there's knight e7. Right, that does seem to save black for a moment. b4, bishop would move. B4 is actually a worthy forcing move to check out because of knight b6. King c7. I mean, it looks overwhelming, but I haven't found a total knockout blow just yet. Bishop e7, knight b6, king c7. And then what? I think the problem is this bishop is not helping anything at the moment. What about just rook d6? Actually, knight b6, king c7, rook d6. Well, takes here. Rook takes. Queen a8. King c7. Queen a7. Wins the rook. Yeah, I think this has to be winning. Queen a8 after rook takes b6. King c7, queen a7 must win the rook surely on b6. Well, this, so king takes, queen a7. Okay. All right. Thanks for the game there, yes. BV Bowl 09. I'll try this improvement from earlier game, try and justify this crazy Shigorian line. Try and stop 95. Try and stop e5. Right, it looks a little bit less dodgy than it might have done it just a moment ago. I'm going to play bishop g4. This looks good for knight e5 all of a sudden. If queen e2, there's knight e5. There's bishop e2. But even here, knight e5, there's queen f2. Well, there's actually knight f4. I might be concerned about d6, but knight f4 is very attractive. Surely. There might be e5 for knight e4 to factor in. I think rook, at some point a rook d8. A rook d8. I don't think I've got enough firepower to force anything through here, but it's worth checking out the outrageous forcing moves like knight g2. That doesn't seem to work. Knight h3, bishop f3. There's always bishop f3. There's knight h3 there. Hang on. That's something. So he's going for the knight e4 stuff. I can play queen e7 to protect the bishop. Yeah. Queen e7 protects the bishop. Okay, so situation here. e4 seems actually threatened. Rook d8, just snap off both rooks for the queen. Here, isn't that losing an exchange? Taking that, okay, bishop g4, I get that. But there's knight takes e2 check here. So, yeah. And it's a nasty pin. Although f4, there's queen c4 and f6. Right. Take here though. It's the exchange up. Right, got past pawn here. Right, two rooks on the 7th, if knight f7. Pigs on the 7th, as they're sometimes called, because they eat a lot on the 7th. Okay, thanks for the game. Should we have one more game? And it's been a good 2-hour session today. MF Capello. Oh, quick book recommendation. Maybe after. Interesting, but I'm checking my books. Okay, actually, I'll just get a book out as a quick, interesting recommendation. Although this blow most people's minds, I did with mine. If you want to, Chess for Zebras. If you want to meet the most philosophical grandmaster writer ever, I think Jonathan Rowson must come close. Because, yeah, there's a lot of verbiage. Now, when you see a lot of verbiage in a book, that means a lot of effort has been put into the chess book. That's a quick clue that someone has spent weeks, months writing the chess book. Yeah, it's when you get essentially database dump books with little commentary. Should we end on a book review? Yeah. See, you can just tell immediately someone spent weeks and months of their life writing this, because the clue is that there's passages, you can actually read this almost like a novel, yeah? And the thing is, it might not improve your chess in the short term, but it will get you thinking about chess from a philosophical point of view. And I don't know how many of you have got this. I mean, I can read you the table of contents. And I should really, actually, this is one of the books I should really, out of all the books I can see on my right, this is one of my ones that I want to read, actually. I think I might take this to my other place and read it later today. The table of contents. Well, and I've also met him at the London Classic in Underground. I've got a video for the London Classic. But yeah, he won the British Championship as well. I think twice, or maybe at least twice. Okay, so part one, improving our capacity to improve. I'm going to read you the table of contents. Hopefully that's not breaching any copyright. Improving our capacity to improve. So he looks about what you do when you think there's a hole in your bucket. He likes the metaphors. So if you're into your metaphors, there's tons of metaphors in this. Yeah. Learning and unlearning, hindsight and foresight, knowledge and skill, the intelligence unconscious, developing skill, psychologics, storytelling, which goes into chess narratives, vague narratives, opening narratives. It's really fascinating. Which myth are you playing by? Myths themselves, the sacrificial attacker, probably. I need to read this chapter in particular. The thwarted genius, the noble apprentice. Then concentrate, learning to concentrate. Yeah, that's something. The lazy detective. Can you make any more useful moves before your first move? Yeah, why chess is so difficult. Something that works for me. Doing and being. Why shouldn't I be defensive? Glorious grinding. Part 3 is thinking colourfully about black and white. So yeah, I think this is a really thought-provoking book. That clearly, it's one of those chess books that has been done over months. Yeah. So that's my book mention of the week. MF Capello, you didn't seem to start the game. Shall I challenge you? What's happened here? Why didn't you start the game? I played my move. Shall we wait till next week? Okay, it's been a couple of hours, so I hope you enjoyed today's session, and there's some pointers to improve your game, as well as interest pointers. Okay, so see you next week. Comments, questions, likes appreciated on both the Chess24 channel for this video, and I also put it onto my Kingscrusher channel as well after. So thanks very much. Cheers then.